If you can become a multi-sport athlete, a two-way guy, if you can get your body and your marriage in the same direction at the same time of where your money is, watch what happens to all of it. Watch what happens to your money. Watch what happens to your career. You will attract more, I'm telling you, and you don't even have to do more. My name is Brian Pannuzzo. I'm an executive coach that helps successful professionals get wealthy outside of the office in their mind, their body, and their relationships. I'm an expert at this because I did it myself. I sat inside corporate America in your seat for 20 years. I am not special. If I can do it, so can you. Welcome back to the show. This is the Success Lift podcast. My name is Brian. I appreciate you being back with me. We are in the beginning and the ramp up of the end of the year. The fourth quarter is coming. The school year has started for everyone. Fall is about to be here for some people, although we are in what Californians call a heat wave. In all fairness, it is very hot in some areas of the Los Angeles area and Southern California area. So I don't want to make this like a silly thing that it's 84 degrees in my town. And, you know, that's super hot and people lose their minds. It's like 100 degrees and 100 plus degrees in other areas of LA. And so, but it's hot. It's pretty warm. When there's no breeze, we live sort of near the water, which is amazing. And there's usually a cool breeze. I'm singing my sob story to all of you right now, all of you who live in humidity and real heat for portions of the year are basically telling me to go F myself in your heads, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that. But when there's no breeze and there's 85 degrees, it feels kind of hot, especially when you're soft like we are, like I am now that I've been here for 5 years and I'm not used to that humidity and I'm not used to that heat. And you wilt in it like a little flower. So, but it is September, it is the fall. And what that means for many, many, many people is it's football season, baby. Football season is back. It is front and center on all of our TVs for most of the week. When you start to look at and notice patterns of behavior, ones that you were unaware of and caught up in previously in your life, it's an interesting case study, man. It's really interesting. Now, please understand, I've said this a little bit on a couple of different social media channels, Instagram, at Brian Pannuzzo, and LinkedIn. If you want to check out any aspects of my daily life or how to improve your lives inside of the office, on the weekends, as a parent, as a father, as a husband, as a mother. I think I share a lot of stuff and I've been told it's helpful. So check me out if you want. What I've noticed and what I've been talking about is, Jesus Christ, how much people fucking gamble and how prevalent gambling is now in our society. I mean, shit, if gambling was this much in your face 20 years ago when I was gambling pretty much every day on sports or 4 days a week, I probably took a couple of days off in fairness to me. Man, I would have had some trouble. It is like you can't watch a sports segment anymore. You can't watch ESPN without it being all over the banners on the bottom of the TV. You can't watch, one of your favorite segments on, on a Saturday or a Sunday morning without them adding some element, brought to you by DraftKings, adding some element of, gambling into the conversation. So we're inundated with it, and we're inundated with it because, in case you didn't know, we lose a lot of money. We lose a shit ton of money. Last year, the American public, U.S. gamblers, lost $264 billion, right? $1 billion, according to the Google machine, according to ChatGPT. Sometimes I've been going to ChatGPT for my information lately. And I think that's wild, especially in an environment where so many people are not doing that well and struggling. And I get the allure of it. It takes your mind off of, what's at hand. It's a little bit of a distraction. You can sedate. You can forget about what you got going on. You can forget about the trouble in your marriage. You can forget about the fact that you're 40 pounds overweight. You can forget about the fact that maybe work is stressful as fuck. And, you just get to sit down, crack open, a bunch of beers and gamble. And I've been there. And so please understand that when I poke fun at this, I call you a loser. I'm sure you're a very nice person, but everybody who gambles loses. I've never met one gambler that wins money on a long-term basis. Yeah, I get it. You could tell me about the parlay that you hit the other day and you're hot and you've been running on a heater the last 2 months and the baseball season has been sick. Whatever, dude. Show me your lifetime earnings gambling and tell me if you've won money. It just doesn't happen for people. There's no Bookies Anonymous. There's no Casinos Anonymous. There is a Gamblers Anonymous. There are helplines for people who gamble. There are no helplines for the casinos. There are no helplines for the guy who collects your money on a weekly basis. By the way, shout out to anybody who still transacts with a physical live human, an actual bookie. Shout out to you guys. I know about those people. So this conversation is not revolving around gambling this week, but it is revolving around the sports season, specifically, a lot in football, and a conversation around a terminology we hear in football or in different sports is are you a two-way player? Are you a multi-sport athlete? Now, multi-sport athletes become very popular in at young ages. Our young kids can play multiple sports. Hopefully your kids are playing multiple sports. There's a ton of value in your kids playing multiple sports. But as you get more and more and more advanced, and I'm already starting to see this with my son, he is starting to specialize more and more. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because he is hyper-focused, or you get hyper-focused on the one sport that you can feel like you can go the furthest in. But it is not necessarily a good thing because you are ignoring other aspects of your athletic capability. My son is a good basketball player. He could be a great basketball player if he put effort and attention and care into it. But he wants to be a major league baseball player. And I respect the hell out of that. And he is working on a daily basis to, let's get all the way back down to the basics, make the freshman baseball team this year at Loyola High School. He wants to play on the JV team. He wants to make the varsity team by the end of the year. He wants to go to a Division I college. He wants to pitch in the College World Series. He wants to get drafted into Major League Baseball. These are all big goals of his, and I respect him for having those. And he will ultimately, in my opinion, he's not going to listen to this, and so I can talk freely. He'll ultimately, I think, specialize in baseball, but for a while, he's going to be a multi-sport athlete, a two-way guy. And inside of sports, it is even more rare. I guess it's probably just as rare. It's equally as rare to be a two-way player. Now, some sports like basketball, you have to play two ways. There's offense and there's defense in the same possession. But a sport like baseball and a sport like football have defined offense and defined defense moments where you don't typically play both. In fact, in quick preparation for this conversation in my head, I thought about how many multi-sport athletes can I think of? And I know there are more than two, but only two came to my mind. Two really, really good ones. Now, I'm not taking anything away from anyone who attempted to play a second career like the GOAT MJ, or maybe even like Tim Tebow, who they both had great careers. Obviously, Michael Jordan, one of the greatest or the greatest of all time in basketball. And let me back up. Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time in basketball. Okay. And then decided to go play minor league baseball. Tim Tebow had a great college, pretty good. And when I say pretty good, it's a relative. People, all right, he made the NFL, which makes him one of the best football players on the planet during his time. I'm not one of those people who was like, yeah, he was pretty good, in the NFL. He was pretty good. He made the NFL. Like, you have to be elite to make the NFL. And then played a little bit of minor league baseball. Talking about Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson. Those are the only two people that come to mind. There was like, wow, they did it at a high level. They played every day. They were all-stars in one sport. I don't know if Deion was an all-star in baseball, but he was a very, very good baseball player. And then not only was he a two-sport athlete, he was a two-way player in football. Insane. And so then you have two-way players in a particular sport. And football is the only one that I really can think of that comes to mind. Deion, I can think of Devin Hester, the cornerback from the Bears, right? The great punt returner, kick returner. Troy Brown, shout out to all my Pats fans. Troy Brown, super annoying Pats fans. I love you guys, but sometimes, most of the times, no, I don't. Travis Hunter, the kid on Colorado, who's on Colorado. I don't know. Does he still play a two-way? Because I don't really watch much college sports. I don't watch much NFL, to be fair. Did you know that of the 100 shows, live TV broadcast? Now, live TV has gone sort of away from people are like, who cares? Who cares about live TV? I totally get that. I'm with you there. So sports would likely be over-indexed anyway in this like top 100, but I looked this up recently or something like that. And every year, this is kind of the same, like 45 to 60 of the top 100 shows in live broadcasts in 2023 were like NFL football games. And another huge chunk were college games. And then it was like the NBA finals and I don't know, like a award show. The top like 97 live broadcasts are football sporting events. It's wild. And so I know I just completely flipped from the conversation that I was just having with you about two-way players into TV broadcast ratings, but this is a mixed message here. Okay. The amount of time that you're going to spend watching somebody else run around on TV, maybe even you have a jersey on with somebody else's name on it. You might manage multiple fantasy football teams. You might even manage one fantasy football team. Now, please, I'm not like railing on you if you, if you enjoy managing a fantasy football team. I'm not railing on you if you love watching your favorite team on the weekend, but I am railing on you a bit if you are doing all these things and you have some reason why you can't improve other areas of your life. Now, this will definitely shift into a conversation around fitness, of course, because, that's what I tend to talk about and what I do. But like, I'm also talking about like, you don't have time to connect with your wife more and take her out on a date. And you don't have time to maybe, grow your income. I mean, typically the people that listen to this have that part figured out. At least they're the furthest ahead. And it's the other areas of their life that come, at the cost of doing business in your professional life. And so like, if there's an area of your life, and there's an area of all of our lives that could be improved, mine, absolutely, multiple areas. Like, why would you ever sit down for 6 hours and watch a bunch of people run around on TV that don't know you, that don't care about you, that will never know you, and don't care whether or not, like, quite frankly, like, they may care less about whether or not they win or lose the game than you do. And, well, I shouldn't say that. They care a lot. They definitely care more than you. What I meant to say was, when the game is over, you are probably more affected by the outcome than they are, because they understand they're there to do a job. They do their best. They put their best effort in. They prepare. And ultimately, you can't control the outcome. You can only control how you prepare and how you show up. You allow that to affect the next 48 hours of your life, which is wild to me. Wild. So I'll get back into this two-way conversation now. But it's just crazy how much time will be wasted in our society, mostly by married men who have families who need to improve areas of their life on Saturdays and Sundays in the next 4 months. It is tragic how much time will be wasted. Now, you could do both. I know people who do both. I don't watch a ton of sports. I will sit down every once in a while and watch a game. But it's crazy to me how much time a lot of people are going to spend. And then if you ask them, do they have everything that they really want? And they would say, no, I don't. And it's really hard. And there's, not enough time. And it's really tough, and all the bullshit that we normally hear. All right, back to the two-way conversation. By the way, another two-way guy that just popped up into my head, not this year, but Shohei Ohtani, very rare in baseball to pitch and also be a regular everyday player, which he has been in the past. So these people are rare. It's a very rare thing to be a two-sport or a two-way athlete. And the question is, why? Why is it so rare? Well, because it is hard. It requires inconvenience. It requires you to be really good at two different things. I can get my son to work on his arm care, on his pitching mechanics, on a shadow bullpen, which is like, you don't really throw a ball, but you just work on your mechanics. He can go to his strength training facility that specializes in working with pitchers. I can get him to read a pitching book. I can get him to listen to a podcast with athletes that talk about mental performance, especially around pitching. It's hard to get him to go across the street into a batting cage that we have access to whenever we want and just grind it out on the tee, or just have the machine, pitch. I'd have to go with him, or somebody would have to go with him because it's not an automatic one. It's like, why is it so hard? It's really hard for him for me to get him to work on, his ball handling, to develop his right hand more. Why is it so hard for one thing and not another? Well, because that takes a lot of discipline, a lot of effort, a lot of mental focus as well, to be able to be really, really good at more than one thing. It really shows why a lot of people, a lot of men specifically, get really good at one thing, making money. They get really good at their careers. They make sure their marriages are good enough. Some of them have pretty good to good enough physiques. Some of them have awful physiques and put no value in it. And so we make sure, taking this back to Hudson and the example of basketball, he'll probably make the basketball team this year. He'll probably play because he's a good player and he's hard to keep off the court. He's 6'3" as a freshman, and he can rebound, and he's a good team player, and he can shoot, and he's a good passer. Now I ask him to create at the top of the key for himself, and he struggles there. Pressure the shit out of him, and he struggles a little bit. But in the flow of four other guys who are handling the ball a lot and doing a lot of the heavy lifting, he's an asset out there. And so he'll probably play. But to get him to take it to another level requires an added level of commitment and discipline and consistency that he just hasn't wanted to do. And so it's kind of like adults. It's kind of like me in my life previously. I didn't want to take my physical performance, my physical health to another level. I was pretty good. I walked around, looking good enough where you looked at me and you were like, yeah, he's fine. It's not a problem. He's not one of the obesity statistics. He's probably not headed for chronic disease. On the surface, my marriage looked the same. Now, what people didn't know is that wasn't true. And my wife was nearing the point of leaving our marriage, which thankfully she didn't. And thankfully we are in a much better place now because of some of the things that I've been doing, which are all correlated and begin to influence each other, which I will talk about in a moment. But because I had enough going on in a couple of these areas, I was able to just continue to focus on the one that provided me the most feedback, the easiest feedback. Put a unit of effort in, get a unit of effort out, AKA grind at work, get some dollars, feel good about myself. I looked up some stats because I was curious, And I think there's like 340 million people or something like that in the US. There's like 9 million or so, maybe 10 million people in the US that have, you would call millionaires, not like by net worth, because people have homes. And I think that skews the number. It probably like doubles the number or so, although that is an asset. But I'm talking about like 1 million in like investable assets. And I think there's like 10 million or so people. Let's just call it 10 million. And that's like 3%. All right. So 3% of the population are what I would call millionaires. Okay. Now, I went to the chat GPTs to ask them some more questions about people's physical health. And basically, I'll dumb this all down to it's really hard to figure out how many people have a six-pack. And by the way, a six-pack is not the landmark for your health. I know people who have a six-pack whose blood work probably sucks. It doesn't mean that you're not healthy, that you're not in shape. If you don't have a six-pack, actually, six-packs probably are overrated, to be fair. Everyone should strive to go and see your abs, I think, for a period of time. Everyone should be able to see them when they clench really hard. Check me out on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, I just squeezed the shit out of my abs in my body. I think it's like under 1%. Based on general fitness trends and body composition data, it's reasonable to estimate that a very small percentage of adults, likely well under 1%, have visible six-pack abs. So then I went on because I was like, well, that's not the marker. Like the marker the bogey shouldn't be six-pack, because I just basically said you don't need a six-pack. In fact, there are aspects of your life that I think aren't worth sacrificing forever in order to just have abs showing. That means you need to, most of the time, sacrifice some things that I, quite frankly, am not willing to sacrifice, like maybe ice cream with my kids, or pizza on a Friday night, or, a couple extra glasses of wine with my wife. All of these things. And this is not to say that you can't do those things as well, but the two are pretty highly correlated. So I lowered the bar. I upped the body fat percentage, because that's probably sub 10%, like visible all the time. It's like 8 to 10% body fat, which is really, really hard, really, really hard to do. To give you context, I'm probably in the best shape of my adult life right now. And my last body composition scan in early July, it's probably gone up because I've put some weight back on. Put some muscle back on for a little while, baby. Then we're going to strip a little fat off. But I was 11% body fat on a DEXA scan. All right. I know all you guys out here running in-body scans and some other scans that have your body fat at like 6%. You ain't 6% body fat. You ain't 8% body fat. Totally fine for you to do those, because we just care about apples to apples. So if you're going to do an in-body, which is a very common, they got those in the gym a lot, or people step on a scale, at home scale or whatever. It's totally fine that you use those. Just understand they're not super accurate. And DEXA, to be fair, is not like the most accurate thing either. It's just probably the most accurate one. It's also probably the most stringent one. So on the most stringent one that's pretty regularly available to the public, I'm 11% body fat. On an in-body, I don't know what that correlation would be. It would probably be 6%. It might even be less. I'm not sure. But neither here nor there. I just needed to protect my ego, because I know there's going to be people that listen to this. They're like, 11. I just did one. I was 8.5. Fuck, you were. You weren't. Needed to protect my ego a little bit. So if we raise the bar to like 15%, okay, on a DEXA scan, which I don't even know if this is on a DEXA scan, that takes the percentage of people that fall within that threshold 10 to 20%. I think 20% is way high. I think it's more like 10%. If you take it down to 12%, it's 5 to 10% of the population. All right. And that's men too, by the way. I didn't do women, because women's body fat percentages are going to be higher. So it's not fair to use that one threshold. And so I'm rambling out numbers a little bit here, but let's just like kind of wrap this up for you. All right. It's extremely rare for somebody to be what I would define as fit, which should be about 15% or so body fat on the DEXA body fat scan, or maybe 10%-ish on the in body. Now, are you not healthy if you're 17% or 18% or 20%? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about fit. Like, take your shirt off and people are like, damn, like, what are you doing? You look good. You look good. Now there's another level to that too, which I'm exploring myself, but I'm not saying that that's even necessary. And so that's incredibly rare. It's also pretty rare for people to have a lot of money, right? And now let's not even get into like how rare it is to have a marriage that is, you would describe as, you know, beyond the honeymoon phase, because our marriages should go like this, everyone. And I don't know if the camera is going to go in the right direction. So I'll articulate it to you. Our marriages should be going from the lower left of the chart to the upper right as we move on through the marriage. Most marriages do not do that. They start at the top left-hand corner of the graph and they probably stay there for a little while. And I think it's like a slowly deteriorating stock chart. It has gaps down. All right. Your marriage takes a gap down, then it stabilizes a little bit. And then maybe it kind of moves its way up a little bit. And then here come the sellers again and bang, it takes another gap down. And it looks like a really shitty stock chart. Those of you who know what I'm talking about know exactly, you have this picture in your mind. All right. We have gaps down in our marriages and then we stabilize for a little bit. We'll figure it out. Things will be okay. Then we gap down again instead of slowly but surely. And this is a relative thing because obviously your marriage likely started out in a good place. Otherwise, what the fuck were you doing? And so this whole notion of a honeymoon phase, I think is total bullshit. I've learned this from great friends, people who coach this stuff. Incredible knowledge I've gained that I'm implementing. I'm the sample size here for me. I'm doing this in my own marriage, in my own life. I fuck it up every single week, but I keep coming back. I keep trying new things. I keep pushing myself. I keep trying to get uncomfortable. I keep expressing myself more to my wife, telling her what I want. And sometimes she's like, yeah, okay, whatever, bro. Like, go earn it, you know, keep working. But the more I do in these other areas, and this is why I want to tie this all together as we're approaching almost 30 minutes. I know you got a football game to get to this week. The more your money goes in the right direction while your body goes in the same direction, the more it's influenced my marriage. Now, could you have a six-pack, a ton of dough in the bank and have a shit marriage? Of course you could. You have to work on these things at all times, but they are all highly correlated and they influence each other. And that's what I wanted to convey in this message. The people that I work with, I'm getting more and more and more data as we go because I'm more and more and more experienced with this. I see more and more people coming through. I have more and more conversations. This stuff is highly correlated. When you get your money correlated to your fitness, when your fitness can get on the same level as your career and your wealth, and you can also begin to work on your marriage, they don't all need to be at the same spot at the same time. Mine are not. All right. My fitness is at a fucking 12 out of 10 right now. My marriage is probably at a 9 out of 10. My money is not there. It's getting there, but it's not there. It's a relative thing. It's getting there. And so, but like the more I improve the marriage, the more I've started to focus on the fitness, the more it's just pulled up the aspects of my professional life. Instead of I just like pour into the one thing that's working. For a lot of people, that's career. And so you just pour into that because like you get immediate feedback. It's working. Why don't we do more? Why don't we do more? And ultimately you have an overflowing bucket in one area and two that are dry as a desert. So like because I talk to so many people who are like, yeah, you know, like my health is pretty good. It's good enough. You know, my blood work is good. Fuck your blood work, man. Yeah, your blood work's important. But like when you take your shirt off and you have tits or your gut is hanging over your belt, that's not pretty good. when you're worried that like your marriage might not survive, like your kids being out of the house, that is not pretty good. That is a path to destruction. And so I want everyone who listens to this, who cares about what I have to say, because I say this stuff because I care about you. And I appreciate you listening and allowing me, hopefully, to influence you. That if you can become a multi-sport athlete, a two-way guy, maybe even a three-way guy. A lot of my guys would love three ways. If you can get your body and your marriage in the same direction at the same time of where your money is, watch what happens to all of it. Watch what happens to your money. Watch what happens to your career. You will attract more, I'm telling you, and you don't even have to do more. I'm not working any harder over the last year and a half or year or so than I was in my first 3 years of my business. Quite frankly, I was grinding the fuck out of my days trying to figure all this out. I don't work as hard now. I have more clients and more income. Is it where I want? Fuck no, not even close. But I am working less and making more as I've taken my fitness to another level and I focus on my marriage. I don't know why, but I ain't asking too many questions. I'm telling you, there is this energetic exchange between all of them that when you get them moving in the right direction, they feed on each other, they support one another, and they push you to the next level that you desire. And you don't know until you try. And I'll end this by saying the same thing that I say to a lot of people. You can always go back. You can always decide that this new life of a better body and more sex and equal or more amount of money in your bank is not a life you want to live. You can always go back. You can go back to the man boobs with the sweat underneath your boobs during a hot round of golf and the swamp ass and achy joints and having to eat the Advil and being out of fucking breath walking up the stairs and not being able to chase after your kids for more than 5 minutes, not being able to pick them up and carry them in a theme park for more than 2 minutes. You can always go back. You can go back to, getting laid once every 2 weeks or once a week, or having it be like this, just like, like missionary, like just, let's get it over with, sitch. You can always go back. You won't, but you can. Have a great week watching football. Maybe do some push-ups while the TV's on. Talk to you next week.